So this panel is about unlocking the potential of emerging technologies in education. So my first question is about so during COVID, we all leapfrogged into technological platforms without much thought because there was no time. But post COVID, what is the thought process at educational institutions, and what are the takeaways in terms of which features to retain, what to improve upon. So, what has been the kind of thought? So, maybe I can start with you, Professor Das.
Thank you. See, during COVID, all that happened was we used technology for enhancing delivery. Content was delivered online instead of face to face, but we didn't really use technology for changing the way students learn. So I think the biggest boom that has happened to education in the last, I would say, 1 year or so is generative AI. Generative AI has completely changed the game because now it allows you to develop large language models on very, very specific, customized, tailored content. The one most people are familiar with is just an example, ChatGPT, but that is not generative AI. That is just one example of generative AI. I think the ultimate learning pedagogical objective should be a flipped classroom model where students learn concepts and theory on their own, and they come into the classroom to learn applications and use cases through hand-holding from the learning facilitators or the faculty or the professors or the teachers if it's a K-12 situation. Now, what will enable this to happen? That generative AI technology will allow you to build large language models on very specific content. So, I come from the business school space, so you could create an LLM for say marketing, separately for finance, separately for operations management. In K-12, you could create an LLM separately for class 10 physics, class 10 chemistry, class 10 history, or whatever you may have. And these could become personal tutors for the students where, like in any GenAI model, it's about what prompt you ask. They'll put in a prompt, that will be the question, they'll get an answer, which will be based on, highly trained neural networks built on this LLM platform from the content that is curated high quality content put there. And so they will learn the basics and come into class and ask their teachers when they get stuck or for applications or use cases. I think that is the way education, even in the brick and mortar space, is going to get majorly disrupted. And we should adopt it fast and not be like ostriches with our head stuck in the sand and saying that no, this thing is not real. It is real and it is good. It's not only real, it's good.
Thank you. Coming to you, Mr. Chebbi. So, what Professor Das has touched upon AI, and there will be a separate panel on AI also. But to touch upon that topic, what will it take to leverage technology in terms of infrastructure upgrade, in terms of training the trainer, the teachers, and the mind shift that will have to come about?
First of all, thank you, Meha, for inviting me. Well, as Dr. Das mentioned, I'd like to give an analogy. What technology did to the finance industry, 3-click, go, reach your destination or convert or close a transaction, that's not how education works. Here, we are the subject to be augmented. Here, human knowledge potential has to be enhanced. So Gen AI, as spoken by Dr. Das, has sort of taken us to a stage where we can truly augment our skills. But for us to do that, we must recognize on the note that he stopped at, that this is good. This is not just good for the country, the society, the community, but for us as individuals. That's where it starts off. Being good essentially means that if used well, you can create remarkable results. But that doesn't happen in isolation. Well, let me give you a context of a university. Universities are run by minds that are deep expertised in certain areas. You have, let me take the example of a business school where we left out. You have areas where faculty have specialized in. But for them to bring about transformation, either in knowledge creation or dissemination, requires that they work tremendously hard, and it's technology that will aid and assist them. They must recognize this aid. B, they are in an environment that requires support, mentoring, guiding. So institutions, larger communities must take technology as one of the number one priorities and try to funnel that and chart out a plan. And that's where it starts. And it's most important that it starts at top as much as it starts from the bottom. Democratization of artificial intelligence, what we saw coming from ChatGPT, which was there years ago in the military, in healthcare, an MRI machine is a very, very smart equipment. But now everyone has that on their phones. It's a very low-hanging fruit example. For institutions to implement technology, to answer your question, a mindset change is required. They need to evaluate what's there in the market and then do a product requirement fit. It takes the entire ecosystem to work towards something like this. To give you an example, today we have learning management systems, just as one example, that can create pathways for students. But it just does not create by itself. It is we humans that will have to chart out, put that on the application, and then funnel that. It is through technology that learning can be broken into micro-learning content that can be administered to students and also accessed. So apart from mindset, there needs to be a drive. For that drive to happen, everyone in the community should be involved, and there shouldn't be fear from technology. It should be adapting to technology. That's number one. Number two, there are many, many applications that are open source. Please note that technology has reached a stage where people need to access it for free. We don't have to really pay for data anymore. It's just our information or anything else that can be traded, but all of this has to become seamless. So I suppose we must invest our time and energies on giving this out to everybody. Proprietary applications are good, but democratized open source applications are the way forward. Imagine a student, I'll give you a story, Meha, without taking too much of your time. There was a student, in 2011, a student at Alliance University. He was blind, right? And he used a $900 product for the year to hear what goes on in his computer. He worked tremendously hard. Today, I could proudly say, with technology, he's leading Tata Clicks community as a community manager, and when he takes care of social media and many other things. And then, trust me, nobody that I know uses technology as much as he does. All for free. He doesn't believe in paying, because human, be it someone who's from an underprivileged area, a special person, or a privileged person, technology must be the same, and it is up to the human and the community to use it better. More on that as we speak along.
Thank you. Coming to you, Professor Shankar Venkatesh, in the inaugural address, Dr. Batra has talked about the quality of learning. If you can elaborate on that aspect of quality at your campus, how are you addressing this issue?
All right. So sort of widen the question a little bit. Three of the classic problems with higher education that government has tried to solve since the last 5 decades or so is access, inclusiveness, equity, and quality. Dr. Mathur also talked about the veracity of online education. So it's like a balancing act. So in a country marked by disparities and lack of access to, in our case, education. So look at the latest gross enrollment ratio, for example. Right now we are sitting at around 27%. So gross enrollment ratio in higher education is 27%. So about 14 to 15 crores, 18 to 23 year age group Indians are there, boys and girls. And our gross enrollment ratio right now is 27% in 2022. So when you ask about access, and although the subject is technology, but at the bottom line is the human being. I cannot forget as a teacher, we are sitting in January, February. In the year 2023, from January to December, 12 months, in Kota there were 23 suicides of students going through coaching courses, programs for admission to various colleges and institutions, largely in STEM and medicine. 23. We've just started the year with 2 more suicides in January. So this is one city only, Kota. I don't know how many suicides. As a teacher, I have faced 3 suicides by my students. It is very difficult to face their parents. So when we talk about access, the common denominator is there is nothing available. So the first motivation for me, and I'm not talking about Great Lakes, the institutions represented here, at least me, Himadri, pardon by saying so, we are elitist. So you said you had a club. So why can't others enter into this club? By the way, I'm a capitalist, I'm not a communist. Right? But then, 27% in 2023. So meaning, 4 crores, roughly about 4 crores Indian kids are registered in colleges and universities. That leaves about 10 crores wandering out. Doesn't mean that, in other countries it is much better. But I don't want to compare myself with other countries. So my first take is, even in 2023 and next 10 years forward, access will remain our biggest problem to solve. Quality to me is a secondary notion. अरे पहले कुछ होगा तो quality control करें. There is nothing. Kids are literally killing themselves because of lack of access. And I've heard very erudite people opining that they were not good enough, therefore they found an easy way out. So we are judge, jury and executioner also, apart from being educationists. So to me, access has to be solved. And I think online can do wonderful things. Professor Sastapute is going to be here in the evening. The SWAYAM portal of IICT, which is free, where public and private partners, education providers, content providers, are sharing content for free. Please look at, so this is the old model, but in India, it has come under the same umbrella of what we call SWAYAM. The name itself says in Sanskrit, SWAYAM means to do by yourself. I will bother about quality later. First, by the way, the content providers are validated, accredited, certified, good. So obviously they will not put out trash. And I'm sure there is an editorial process at SWAYAM wherein they would be filtering. So we are taking care of at least quality content. But the key word here is availability for free. He said, free. Right? This is a country in 2023 still embedded with large disparities. And sitting in too much heated room, right? It's difficult to understand what is happening in a tier 3 country or in a rural college or a school. No teachers, no books in the library, no internet, computer ही नहीं है तो internet. So the idea therefore is when there is not much, first create the substrate. Quality. Coming back to your question. I'm sorry, you asked a teacher to come here. One class takes 90 minutes. So sorry, I'll take 2 more minutes. Quality. Just one example. We are trying to enhance an LMS that we already use, which is built in-house in a sister organization. I won't take the name. Let me take the name. Great Learning. It used to be a sister organization. Now it has been acquired by another company. But we built the LMS there. And when I say we, I also contributed conceptually in the design bit. In that, there is a lot of data that is being captured from all stakeholders who are, invoking and using the LMS. There is already availability in, for example, this is Himadri's word, fraud analytics. Who in a credit card company, which customer is prone to default, can be predicted with a high degree of accuracy. With the amount of data and the past use cases and experiences that we have in that LMS of ours, we are trying to build, and this is what we are trying to build a possibility wherein we can predict which student is going to most probably falter in advance, so that we can reach out and do something custom for him or her. So we are trying to predict. This is like the old Tom Cruise movie, Minority Report. Right? So we are trying to do that. By the way, this is nothing new. Finance companies already have. Similarly, we are using gamification in the delivery of courses in pedagogy, wherein we use this card system, red, blue, white types, and bargaining chips. You do something well, you are exempt from something else. Right? What does this do? This increases engagement. We have just launched an online center for online learning in Great Lakes, Gurgaon. I have 1,600 students already in about 1 year. We are offering a IICT approved 2-year program. Quality. We are following the same AMBA and NBA norms of assurance of learning. And it is possible to be done online. A large chunk of the administration and processing of this is through technology platforms. And that's where, so if you really want to look at quality, it is in the design phase, in the delivery phase, and in the evaluation phases in all the 3 areas in higher education, content creation and delivery, we have to use this. So I just gave you one example of how we are trying to do this.
So thank you.
Sorry.
So coming to Mr. Chaubey, from IIIT Delhi, what are the possibilities that open up? I mean, we have heard other speakers in terms of access, quality. Coming from IIIT Delhi, what would you say are the possibilities that open up with EdTech and technology?
So the possibilities are immense. There has been a lot of potentials came up with the technology. The education, and we are working on it with IHUB. We are working on these technologies to come to the market ourselves and with our startups also. The first of all, the ability to make education more personalized through AI, generative AI, that is going to change the education, to customize the textbooks, to customize the entrance examination, and then even helping them to select right career according to their personalities using AI or generative AI technologies. that is going to change it. Education is going to be more immersive with AR, VR technologies, then going to make them more involved while studying anything. Then making education more cost effective, particularly for a country like India or any developing country where cost is a big factor while making education accessible or not. Technology has proved itself. YouTube has become one of the largest university across the world. And even I was very happily surprised to see a girl from Jharkhand was teaching lessons on English on YouTube. And that is the power of technology. It is not only taking education to the villages, but it's also enabling villagers to again give back the education. And then again, the other part of the community, which is not mostly talked about in mainstream education, is the especially able people. Now the technology is making accessible. One of our startup is working on devices, mobile phone devices and dedicated devices to make content readable. Basically, to through device, they are making it accessible for students who can't read, the blind students. I remember one of my startup. He made a bone conduction headphone 3-4 years back, and he won the Smart India Hackathon also for that. He made a very cheaper version of that bone conduction headphone. And the first time when he used that technology on kids who could not hear voices from their birth, and when they using that bone conduction technology, when they listen the lessons and they heard the voices, the tears came down. And that's the power of technology that can play a role in that. What I believe is that technology has immense potential. It is on our intent, coming from the institutes, how strongly we want to implement it, what our objective is, and then technology can help us.
Thank you. Coming to you, Mr. Patidar. So you represent the other end of the spectrum, solutions provider. What has been your experience in terms of the kind of expectations that education institutes have? What is their need, and what are the solutions that you are offering, and also the challenges that you face?
So I would put it in three key contexts. One is how do we really look at the goals? Okay. When we try to see and approach someone, we try to see what is their vision and the goals. Okay. And when we see those goals, how are we connected to real world? Because if I put it three contexts, today technology is one imperative of it, but how we learning as humans, okay, is also science which is discovered a lot. Okay. How human learns. Okay. So if I talk about the science of knowledge, okay. So because if visually I can learn better, okay, technology is helping me out there. Okay. If I'm audible learner, it's different. If I'm kinesthetic, okay, do I have access to this? So a lot of time when we go to schools and even universities also, the challenge we face is they have. So I talk about space terms. They have laboratories that they can experiment, but where there's thinking space, where they can take the real world problems inside the campus. Because a lot of times, if I talk about schools, they have labs where the experiment is predefined and results are done. Okay. We are in those states, and if you want real world, the dynamism come in the campus and give them that access that they really can benefit out of it. Because everyone wants to learn. As a human, we are we love learning. Okay, but if I talk about education, okay, we have some gaps there. Okay, because it's a planned program, and if it is not designed around learning, okay, if I bring out technology, it's not supporting my user behavior, how it's going to get to. Today we see a lot of data of users when we discover. So let's say one of the program we are doing living spaces hostel for someone. Okay, and we were given a brief that we want this many kids to live in the campus. I said, can you re-brief the whole program once again? Because see, I can do this by this brief, but what are their behaviors? Okay, then we started reading the data. We show them mobile handy when they are on it, but they cannot hold it this way. Okay, how they access laptop? All those problems where they collaborate together. Because if I don't read those briefs, I'm not able to sketch it in right proportion. Okay. I give you context because I try to bring out human side in the problem statement. So we have technology offering, but if you don't get domain expertise, the interdiscipline of human side of it or humanity side of it, how to solve the problem. So that's an example of YouTube, like I mentioned. What would be YouTube measuring for? What is the key measure what YouTube measures? Okay. Is it their number of viewers? It is number of watch hours. Okay. The context is, if there is a good content, it will always keep on top because of number of watch hours, not number of users. So when you set context right, okay, then your measurability also comes with the technology because your algorithm is written on that basis rather than a user basis. So I always say, how strongly we discover the problem would help us enable the technologies around it. And then that's where we can set it right. Because in India, we feel we don't go into deep thinking. We don't try to head it deeper. And that's where the bigger problem comes out. So what we are bringing outside from the other part of the real world into the learning and add on to the technology where you can enable the program. So the challenge has always been we feel there's a the context is not bigger, is not wide enough. How the science of futurology works around. Okay. So if you talk about futurology, we can predict futures. It's always in some portion in the present. But what is going to be fictional model? What is going to be wild cards? What is going to be scenarios? Which scenarios is going to be working in future? And that's where we can actually predict those trends and mega trends and build around them. Right. So from us, deeper discovery is, I would say, needed to maybe design the programs and then help us to meet the needs.
So one question is, maybe any of you can answer, is where is the teacher now placed? What is the role of teacher now that students have access to technology? How has that role changed?
Maybe we can all give a sentence on that, sentence or two. I'd like to start first. I think traditional approach is gone. It's no more a faculty or a teacher being a sage on the stage, but a guide by the side. I think that's what I would say.
What has not changed? That the teacher and the student have to study. ठीक है? Sage बुला लो, guide बुला लो, जो करना है कर लो. Finally, some of the things that Yogesh was talking about. My namesake, he's also Venkatesh. 2012, we proposed a theory called UTAUT, UTAUT, right? 2016, he improved it to a UTAUT 2 model. It actually empirically validates what will it take a learner, and I'm not using the word student because student बोलते ही वो सामने जो बैठा हुआ जा रहा था. Learner, including the teacher, what would it take for them to adopt and use technology? So there are, in the old UTAUT model, there were 4 variables: performance expectation, etc. And simple है, it's not very difficult to understand, but if you read that, those are the 6-7 variables that has already been validated and found out. अब आप learner हो, whether you are called a teacher, whether you are called a student in a particular context, doesn't matter. Right? So, for instance, to answer this question, we have just finished the design and setup of a AR VR XR lab at campus. कहने से लगता है कि बहुत बड़ा facility होगा. We are self-funding it. So we have used some hardware we have procured, use headsets and iPad चाहिए होता है उसमें because virtual reality करना है तो headset चाहिए, augmented करना है तो iPad चाहिए, right? So we have invested in some machines. A young lecturer who has just joined, he has a PhD in AR, VR, XR and metaverse marketing. उसको interest किया है. We have already designed a course around it. But we are planning to use it in any other course, not necessarily that AR, VR, XR marketing course, wherein projects and research studies from students or the teachers, they can use this, right, for experimentation based research and learning. So earlier, setting up experimentation was difficult, especially in the social context. Setting up experimentation is difficult, large scale experimentation. So we are trying to use this. So when you say the how for the teachers to change their, I think we should remove this bifurcation. Learners, uh, those 6-7 parameters that has been evolved that you taught, and it has been tested multiple times, hundreds of times, and it has been found to be validated. So that can be used for from the context of any learner, right? And technology can now help you. And the moment you start integrating, one of them is that habit is also a variable that you taught. So, by the way, in Indian schools, we are now included computers and working with computers at school level, 6th, 7th, 8th. So that is going to build this habit. So by the time you come to tertiary education, your fear of all those is not that much. I am from, I don't know which generation, but I graduated with masters with not ever having laid my hand on a personal computer in a central university where the library grant per year used to be 3 crores at that time. And the first lecturer's job I got in a public university, within 6 months I badgered my vice chancellor enough to buy 3 computers. This is 1990. So we have gone through that stages, and I think we are not stuck in that era anymore. And public and private, there is funding, there is grants available, a lot of free things are available, right? So we can use that, and teachers, students, everybody. So,
Professor Das, yes.
So your question was how will the role of the teacher change? The one sentence answer that I can elaborate briefly is that the role of the teacher will become more important and more difficult. And the word difficult, I think, is the operative term here, because see today traditionally what does a teacher do? The teacher, gives lectures, the students listen because the students have no foundation in that topic, right? And the students might ask a few questions based on what they did not understand in that lecture, only based on what they did not understand. So now with all these technologies coming in, whether it is content on YouTube or content coming out of a prompt engineering or an LLM, whatever, doesn't matter. The students will come into class with significant amount of foundational knowledge on the topic. So the teacher's job is going to be to answer questions the students have. And these questions are going to come from a much more in-depth understanding of the subject, not coming in cold. So when the students ask difficult probing questions, for the teacher to be able to answer them, they have to be much more well prepared. They have to have much more depth in that subject, which today may not necessarily be required. I'm not saying none of the teachers have that depth, but you can still get away with not having the depth if you have the breadth enough to deliver the lecture. Those days will be gone. The students will come, the learners will come. I think that's the right word. The learners will come and ask you very, very tough questions because they've already understood the basic foundation from whatever sources of content that is available, and a lot of it for free. So it's going to be tougher to be a good teacher.
So final thoughts from Mr. Chaubey and Mr. Patidar.
The reason is the teacher who is in charge of that particular lab is able to make them so much innovative in their technology development as well as the implementation. That is making the big difference. So the role of teacher is going to be a more important.
I was speaking on conference and I said, the future belongs to teachers. Okay. Because it's so important in coming times. Because they had to be mentors, entrepreneurs, facilitators. They have multiple heads to wear because the times, is they're changing. You know, one of the problem we're discussing at office is how to measure the volume of an egg. Okay. And I was a PCM student. I was taught integral calculus a lot. Okay. But I was never taught that, you know, to figure out volume of an egg, you need to do integral calculus. Okay. Someone gave me the answer of critical thinking that अंडे को 40 glass में डाल देंगे. Another gave me कि अंडे को हाथ में लगाएंगे. You know, teacher had to give that role also. That, you know, he had to. It's the knowledge may be there, but you know, to have that well-being, that you know, the kind of equality or inclusiveness you need to really touch around, that you can touch an egg. Okay. It's also the kind of barriers each and every need to be. I feel another program which we are talking about is finding passionate people to teach. Okay, and so making teacher passionate. Okay, how that reverse thinking can come, because earlier was a notion that teachers were not well paid. Okay, today it's changing. Okay, how we find passion in other people and make them teachers. So you know, those are the kind of things which you might need to see from a different perspective and probably create inclusiveness.
Alright. So आपने लेट शुरू किया, आपको थोड़ा और लेट करते हैं. So in management, although I don't teach strategy and big subjects like those, I only teach some courses in marketing. This is my thinking that who is the most effective or the best manager? Somebody who successfully is able to make himself or herself redundant. So that's the same adage for teachers. Who is the most effective or best teacher? Somebody who makes himself or herself redundant. Tries to actively. Only one guidance. Because of my grey hairs, I have been asked to mentor many young lecturers who come into the system. अभी current वाला जो आया हुआ है, the first day I said that, you know, we class में नहीं घुसना आपने, you are not supposed to enter into the classroom for the next 6 months, right? Even a private institution like that, like ours, does that. That you have to just prepare, and we will provide you guidance on what to prepare. So one of the things I said that, you know, when you finally enter into a class, outside the class, there should be a small table or a chair. You need to leave some things when you enter the class. And you need to take something specific inside the class. When you come out, pick that up and go back. You know what was that thing? I said, your ego you have to leave out. Your ego you have to leave out. And your humility you have to take in. And when you come back, if you really still want, you can take your ego back with you. So to me, I think that has been, and this debate about technology is going to do the same things. You come prepared with some dashboard technology, the kids know more than you. You need to know this from day before technology was the debate. If there are 100 students in the class, their combined intellect is much more than yours as an individual teacher. आप किसी एक टॉपिक पे उनसे ज़्यादा जानते होंगे. So in marketing, it is very difficult for me for the last 20-30 years. It has not been easy for the last 30 years. Technology or no technology. 100 students asked about 100 different companies. Am I a standing encyclopedia? Well, that's what you have to be. But I don't think that has changed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.